Did you watch SmackDown and Raw?
Yes, I did.
All right, cool. So let's start with SmackDown. So
Okay,
it opens up.
let me just say something about SmackDown and Raw. For years and years, because of course, like we've always said, but I won't get tired of saying this. If you complain about something, you're a hater or whatever. Okay, everybody complains about and there's you like, you don't like. That's good. That's bad, which is all subjective. But there's some stuff that's just universally bad. And if it's universally bad for a long time, it's bad for the product. It's bad for everything. That's why we've seen, our fan base go down. And that's the truth, Yeah, it might be more popular because you can have access 24 hours, which you didn't have before. There's 4 or 5 channels that have wrestling now, or how many there are, instead of before there was just 2 maybe, yeah, everything's become more saturated. But at the end of the day, the product was bad. The one thing I've always said about WWE, and because it's the truth, it doesn't matter if they fall behind the times, like when ECW was the edgiest around. They found out, and they just ended up buying ECW and bringing people in that they mismanaged it because of this guy's ego. 100%. Because for every smart thing Vince has done, there's a lot of he's done that I'm like, bro, that was stupid. You're a businessman, okay? With WCW should have been huge, and it wasn't. The thing with NWA should have been bigger, but that, I don't know if that was more because Scott wasn't in the right frame of mind. Or I don't know, though. Maybe Joe knows better because that seems to be like his era of expertise. But,
Yeah.
And bro, they did nothing with what was the other with ECW? They didn't do with ECW either. That could have been huge.
Do you remember how bad the ECW TV show was when they brought it back on Sci-Fi? Were you watching it then? From like
yeah, it was terrible.
Oh,
right.
God.
And so, anyways, here's my point, Disco, that, they find out what's edgy. When they saw the NWO was edgy, they said, well, it, we're going to go edgy too. DX, Rock, Austin, all that. Mm-hmm. They like hardcore wrestling, it. We'll give them tables, ladders, and chairs. And we'll have the Hardy Boys do it with the Dudley Boys that used to work over there. You know what I'm saying? So, I just feel that I kind of have this feeling right now that when I see guys like Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and, some of the other pieces we're seeing there, and they're like slowly turning things around. The shows aren't as bad as they used to be. Let me just say that.
Oh, let me say this. And when you talk about your first point that you made is, bro, we've been doing this podcast. We're coming on 300 shows, right? So we've been doing this a while. 6 years, almost. Well, it actually is 6 years, right?
It'll be 6 years in the summer, yeah.
And there was all that wrestling before that.
What year did Joe come into our life?
2017.
But the thing is like we can't sit there and pretend.
I got to do that year.
It's like you can't pretend that, like, even as we've been doing this 6-year window, bro, wrestling has not grown in popularity. There's no growth. It's like, and we try to point out reasons why, but you can't ignore that data point. That wrestling is not right, and that's right. It's like there's no show me the growth.
Thing is,
it's like
you got to remember, we're also catering to a very fanatical crowd, right? That like they're the hardcore fans. I'm sure some casual fans listen to the show, but what I'm saying is they're way more invested in a lot of than we are.
Right.
And they take it very personal, but it's the truth, bro, because at the end of the day, if you weren't around in the 90s as a fan or a wrestler, bro, you cannot say shit. We were there. We know. We saw it. It doesn't mean, in our day everything was better, because it wasn't. There's that's gotten better. But as far as audience heat and drawing and
a lot of formulas that resonated with the live crowds that still work today that they don't embrace.
Right.
Heel babyface dynamic.
Right. And the great storylines that they had from before is kind of a missing art. But anyways, everything evolves and it changes. I just think that I can slowly see WWE kind of getting better. You know what I'm saying? And,
I'll tell you, especially the theme of the show is like when you're watching it, you were like, you know, this is a perfect example. Okay, this is the road to WrestleMania, and this is with this, and the reason the show is better, okay, is because they're telling longer storytelling. Okay, bro, they're your typical Raw that's not in between the Royal Rumble and what do you call it?
WrestleMania.
WrestleMania. The typical Raw was formulaic in that one guy comes out for an interview, wrestler B comes out, interrupts interview, general manager comes out and says, "Hey, let's have a match." Right? But so the thing is like, okay, this guy has something to say, this guy has an issue with him, and then this guy has a match. What they do now is, in the build-up to WrestleMania, that stuff doesn't take place in one segment. It's like we're telling a story now, so they're dragging it out. I mean, the perfect example is like you'll see a thread on maybe was it this show or Raw? Like the thread on Raw. You're going like, well, why are they doing this with Seth Rollins, right?
Right.
And the thing is like, well, you kind of want to see where it's going.
Right.
You know, that's like a story. It's like this is a progressive
You
story.
do.
It's like, well, wait, what are they doing?
That's what I was thinking.
You know, it's just
Right.
it. What are they doing with this guy? Where's this going? Where is this leading? It's like, you don't
let me throw
have
this
the
extra
answer,
layer on top.
which is good booking. You don't have the answer. You know.
And let me throw this extra layer on top. And what was funny is when he was backstage doing his first promo, people were chanting Cody. And when he got into the ring, they were chanting Cody. And he actually addressed that. I remember he said something like, you know, I those are just rumors. I don't live in rumors or something like that. Like he actually addressed it. You know, I thought that was great.
Yeah. All right,
you know, makes them cool again, you know?
Right.
And then another thing, let me just say another thing. Bro, and you know, their production is so head and shoulders above everybody else. It just looks like a classier, better show, and the camera work is outstanding.
Right.
Yo, what up? This is Konnan, and I host Keeping It 100, my co-host, Disco Inferno, unfortunately.
Well, I'd say you're my co-host.
Listen, every Thursday here on Spreaker, we talk pro wrestling, sports, movies, music, TV, pop culture, and some politics. It's everything the rest of the pro wrestling podcasts are not.
Tune in to hear myself, the superior one, educate and inform.
Tune in to hear me bury Disco.
That's very disrespectful.
Join us every Thursday on Spreaker and keep it 100. Boom!